Second match of the Rugby Championship 2025, folks, sees the Pumas hosting the All Blacks from Cordoba, which is, I think, the first time the All Blacks have played at this venue. All Blacks have got a pretty good record over in Argentina, but of the last 5 games between these sides, only one has been played in Argentina, so they'll be searching for their first ever win over the ABs on home soil, which would be another first, because they've had a few firsts against the All Blacks in recent years. The squads have been named. We'll go through them. There's a few guys injured, a few changes from the last fixtures both these sides played, some relevant stats, the predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. I mentioned the Pumas have made some changes. The big news for them is they have some of their guys who play in France back, who they didn't have in their July matches. The Argentinians are in a bit of an awkward position in that they don't really get an off season for the players who play in Europe, because a lot of guys who play their rugby in Europe have either just had a holiday, they're having a holiday now, or they're just having pre-season stuff starting up, whereas the Pumas are gearing up for a full-on rugby championship. So a lot of these guys don't get much of a break. So some of them were rested during the July tests. But they're back now to take on the All Blacks, which is good news for the Argentinians, because they did lose their series against the lionless English, which was no doubt disappointing for them, especially hurt their world rankings. They've gone with Vivas, Montoya, and Delgado in the front row. So 2 guys who continue on from the game against Uruguay they played a few weeks ago. Montoya is obviously still the captain. He is Mr. Consistent. You can expect him to play relatively deep into the second half and lead, the tackle and turnover stats and whatnot. He's also pretty handy for a maul try. Delgado is maybe the other guy to watch in the front row, because I think it's only his second ever test start. So if the All Blacks can get on top of Delgado at scrum time, it will be harder for the Argentinians. But if he can hold, get parity, then I think it'll be a big boost for the Argentinian set piece. The locks, Molina and Rubiolo. Molina is that skills guy, and Rubiolo the big physical presence. He did get a red card in his last game against Uruguay, but it was then, upon review after the match, not upheld, so he was able to not get a suspension, so he is back available for this one, which is good news for the Pumas. Matera, Crema, and Oviedo is a changed back row as well. Matera did play in that last game. He's been like Mr. Reliable for the Pumas for a number of years now, and he's tended to lead the way in carries and whatnot, certainly against the English and against the Uruguayans and whatnot, but Crema, talk about a big physical presence. They missed him against England. He is back against New Zealand if he can help stop the All Blacks guys getting forward. And also he's another option at line-out time because he's a big dude. That will certainly put the Argentinians on a better footing. And then Oviedo is genuinely a dangerous ball carrier at number 8. So I think if you're an Argentinian fan, the question mark about Delgado is still there. But overall, I think you'd be pretty happy with the balance of skills and physical presence and whatnot in the Argentinian 4-pack. Juan Martin Gonzalez, who's a bit of a jack of all trades, can do line-out stuff, can get line breaks, can make tackles and win turnovers. Him being on the bench is a slightly surprising one, but maybe it speaks to a bit of the depth that they can bring a guy like that on in the second half. It's like a guy who would usually be starting. 9-10 combo is Gonzalo Garcia and Thomas Albanoz. Albanoz didn't play against England, and he was a big miss, I think. He proved last year that he is an exceptional 10. They missed him against England. Remember when the Pumas played the British and Irish Lions? Albanoz was the guy running the show that game. So him being there at 10, I really feel like adds a lot of, how many points? I don't know, a lot of points for the Argentinians going forward. I'm going to say 5 points. 5 points better than Carreras. I like Carreras, but I think Albanoz has proved himself to be the preferable or the preferred 10 in recent times. Chocobares and Cinti is also a changed midfield. Chocobares, again, didn't play against England, so having him back is a bit of a boost for them, although the guy Picado, who's way less experienced, also did all right in the July test. And then Cinti, I wasn't sold on Cinti as a 13 until last year. I think last year he really stepped up. So he's a guy kind of coming into the peak of his game. Delgui, the fleet-footed guy, is there on the left wing. Iscaro, the 7-star, lightning quick on the right wing. And then Malia, who also didn't play in July. 3 tries for the Pumas in the last Rugby Championship. Offload king. He's there at fullback. Really, really dangerous. So they got some weapons in this Pumas backline. Ruiz is also back as the reserve hooker. Titus Chaparro, the veteran there. And Sclavi, the big unit, as the big replacement tight head prop. If Delgado gets in trouble, They probably bring on Sclavi pretty early because he is a big bit of Argentinian beef. Petty's another skills guy to come off the bench who's a very experienced campaigner. So they have got some good experience on the bench in terms of their forwards. I would expect them to pull the trigger early on a few of these guys. Benitez Cruz is the replacement halfback, less experienced. He did start against Uruguay though. Carreras at Santiago, he is there on the bench. Another guy is a bit of a utility. And then Picado is there in the number 23 jumper. So overall, as I said, I think it's a pretty good looking Argentinian side. Bolstered by the return of some French-based players is certainly going to help them. For the All Blacks, obviously a few guys out injured. A couple of our props are still not available. Luke Jacobson's still not available and whatnot. But it's also the return of a few guys. Scotty Barrett is back and he captains the side in the second row alongside tackle machine Fabian Holland, who has taken to Test match rugby like a duck to water. He's genuinely a bit of tall beef, so it also helps out, I feel like, the All Blacks in terms of just the pure height and physicality which he can bring. De Groot's still there at loose head, so as I said, he'll be trying to give Delgado a hard time at scrum time. Cody Taylor is back into the 23 after sitting out that last French game, and then Fletcher Newell also gets a crack at tight head. You feel like, yeah, it's a pretty good scrummaging All Blacks propping duo. I think Fletcher Newell, I don't know, man. If he can start winning penalties against the Argentinians, it will hopefully give the All Blacks the territory they want to start letting loose some of the kind of line-out set plays and whatnot. Vai'i is still preferred at 6. Remember, he's our lock, who's in recent times been shifted to 6. He's done all right against the French. How well will he go against Argentina away from home? Probably our best line-out disruptor, so he'll be looking to pinch some Argentinian ball there. Kadefi gets another start after starting in that third test against the French. Hard tackling guy alongside Adi Savia, who has been, I think, the All Blacks' top carrying guy in all 3 games against the French. Still very much relied upon. So, yeah, it's a decent balance of a big guy at 6, a littler guy, but who's real kind of high work rate at 7, and Savia, who just does a bit of everything, at 8. Ratsama gets a crack at 9, which I think makes sense because he was in the All Black squad prior to the injuries to Hotham and Roygaard, so he should be next cab off the rank. He's not been surpassed by the likes of a Finlay Christie, who is there on the bench. But yeah, Ratsama gets a crack to prove that he can still be the guy at number 9. Bodie's back fit at 10 as well, which sees D-Mac drop to the bench. Geordie is back in starting at 12. Billy Proctor's back in at 13. There's a lot of hype around the Billy Proctor train. But yeah, still test levels still a different beast, isn't it? I don't know that he lived up to all the Super Rugby hype just yet, but he is still growing into that test level game. Rico is there on the left wing, so he is still a winger in Razor's squad at the moment rather than a centre. Reese switches back to the right wing and Will Jordan switches back to fullback. Will Jordan, I mean, he's just the guy to stop, isn't he? He's been getting clean breaks every game he plays. He is, I think, easily our most kind of X-factor guy in the backs, just purely in getting space, more power than he looks like he's got. Bench-wise, Tokiaho is there. He drops to the bench after starting in that last game against the French. A good, powerful guy to bring on, potentially look for some more tries towards the end of the game. Oli Norris and Posilo Tosi are the 2 replacement props, so back into the 23 for both of them. Paddy Tupulotu and Samapini Finau both drop to the bench, so it's a pretty beefy-looking bench with Norris and Tosi, Tupulotu and Finau. So if they aren't getting the physical dominance they want in the start of the game, you feel like Razor does have the option to pull the trigger on some of these guys. It'll be interesting to see if he kind of clusters them together in one group or sends them on kind of piecemeal, because I don't think he's mastered the art of the bench at test level just yet, old Razor. Finlay Christie is there as the replacement 9, so he gets, with the injuries to a bunch of other guys, another crack in the AB's jersey. ALB is there and D-Mac is there as well, so a couple of utility guys who can fill in multiple positions, both of them. The Argentinians, stats-wise, struggled to get real kind of attacking punch against England, which would be really disappointing for them. They were much better against the British and Irish Lions, and then obviously much better against Uruguay, who's a tier 2 side. But yeah, if they lack the punch going forward against the All Blacks, it could be a long day at the office for them. But as I said, Albanoz being back at 10, I feel like really helps unlock the best of that Pumas backline, because he's a running 10 who's quite capable of playmaking as well. For the All Blacks against France, understrength French team, still, we dominated the possession, mostly dominated the territory as well. But at times, France were able to just kind of tackle the house down and win turnovers. So a little bit more finishing, you feel like, from the All Blacks was a little bit lacking against the French. Like, I think they scored 4 tries at least in every game. But still, it wasn't, given the opportunities in terms of possession, it wasn't fully executed, you feel like. I think there's still a lot more to come from the ABs. Like, they pass a lot, the ABs, compared to all the other rugby championship sides. They're passing more than 200 times a game. Everyone else is not close to 200, like 170 or something like that. So the All Blacks are getting a lot of possession, chucking it around a lot, but sometimes they need to find that bit of front football to really get some penetration. So if they can keep the pace high, you feel like it could go well for the ABs, but also the Pumas sometimes enjoy a wee bit of an open game as well. Recent history between the sides, as I said, there's not much in Argentina. 3 of the 5 last games are in New Zealand, although one of those wins, and the only win in the last 5 for the Pumas, comes in New Zealand. They tend to do well when they are absolutely written off. I don't know that the Pumas are being absolutely written off for this one. They are certainly underdogs, but I don't think anyone's writing the Pumas off. If the All Blacks were to get a big win here, then I feel like next week the Pumas would be absolutely written off. They would be actually more dangerous. But as I said, with all their top 14 guys back, they are going to be dangerous this week. But the All Blacks have still got some big wins there. Last time they played in Argentina was 41-12. The last match they played, which was the bounce-back game after that Pumas win, was 42 points to 10. There's a 53-3 there as well, which was also a bounce-back after a loss for the AB. So the All Blacks have put some big scores on the Pumas, but they certainly can't take anything for granted in this game. Average score is 42-14. Best result for Argentina against the All Blacks in Argentina, as I said, has been a draw. But despite some of those big score lines, it is not predicted to be a big blowout. The bookies have only got the All Blacks by 8, so just over a try. And the Rugby Forecast algorithm's going even tighter, saying New Zealand by just 4 points. So it is predicted to be something of a close one. In terms of the world rankings, the All Blacks can take some points off the Pumas. Because the Pumas are at home, they're being scored slightly higher. So the All Blacks can take anywhere between 0.3 and 0.45, depending on the margin. If it's 16 or more or less than 16, the Pumas could take 1.7 off the All Blacks if they were to get a win, which in terms of their world rankings and trying to chase down the top 6, which would make you a top seed for the next World Cup, could be pretty important. It is on in Cordoba, which I don't think, as I said, the All Blacks have ever played at before. It is an evening kickoff over in Argentina, 6:10, which is 9:10 on Sunday morning for us in New Zealand, which is kind of a perfect kickoff time. Frenchman Pierre Brousset is the ref. He will be more familiar to some of the Argentinian players who play their rugby over in France, so maybe a slight advantage there. But yeah, if you want to watch it and you're in the States, it's on Flow Rugby. Check the link down in the description. If you want All Blacks gear, there's also a link down in the description to the All Blacks store. They are an affiliate of the channel. Get yourself some gear ahead of the Rugby Championship. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts. Do you think the All Blacks get a win away from home? Or can the Pumas put a cat among the pigeons for the Rugby Championship early and get that underdog win? Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Take care, folks, and talk to you guys again soon. See you later.